Hi everybody, Craig with PhotoRV. Tonight, Jackie and I are shooting some terrific astrophotography. Hey everybody, it's Craig with PhotoRV. Tonight, we are shooting and talking about some astrophotography. Hey everybody, Craig with PhotoRV. Tonight, we are diving into some astrophotography.
Rock the booth. Rock the booth.
Astrophotography. That's just a fancy word for taking pictures of the stars at night. There are several components of that, the first of which is location. And tonight we are in the very dark sky community of Rodeo, New Mexico. Tonight we are in the dark sky community of Fountain Hills, Arizona. So this is the sad outcome of not properly scouting a location before you haul all of your gear out. What we did not account for, certainly, and we didn't wait long enough last night when we were scouting this location, was to find that in this dark sky community, the famous fountain, there was a path. We knew about the path, but the path, as you can see, is incredibly bright and well lit, just making the images unusable. We're packing up, and tomorrow we are getting out of town to some real dark sky. So we've just spent the last 2 days scouting for the perfect place around Phoenix to get the night photography we're looking for, with the right foreground, the right trajectory of the sky, and we think we found it.
Right. We are at probably the bleeding edge of some of the communities around Phoenix, and we're hoping this is a good one tonight.
We'll find out in a few hours.
But let's show you.
Let's show you. Right.
So why are we choosing this spot?
Well, we're choosing this spot because we want to look north. We want our cameras to be pointed north towards the northern celestial pole. And we want something interesting in the foreground. So it has to be near enough to be prevalent in the frame. So this fits all the criteria. We're on the south side of this ridge.
It's really rocky and interesting.
We wanted it to be rocky and interesting. We didn't want to have lots of ambient light pollution around, and we're going to find out tonight. We don't know about the light pollution part, but we are far out of the town of Phoenix, and this is the dead end. So our plan is to park right here in this parking area, and that should give us, we should be out of the way, and we won't be bothering anyone, no one bothering us. Should be.
That's our plan.
That's our plan. Tonight, we've come far east of the town of Phoenix into a dark sky environment. Now, astrophotography is a deep subset of the field of photography, with its own equipment and own techniques and even its own language. Just predicting what part of the sky you're going to photograph is determined by the season, the time of day, the weather, even the sun and the moon phase. So that can make it complex, but it's incredibly rewarding. Jackie and I are going to give you some tips that are going to allow you to go out tonight, and as long as the sky is clear, get some fantastic images of the night sky. So the first thing we have to decide is what our intent is. What is it that we want? Do we want star trails where it looks like it's raining starlight, or do we want to capture pinpoints of light, stars against a black sky? There are different procedures and techniques for both. There is certain equipment you need to accomplish shooting the night sky. First of all, you have to have a camera that is capable of shooting at least 3200 ISO. Secondly, you have to have a fast lens. That's one with a small aperture number. Both of our lenses tonight are f2.8. We even have an 85 millimeter 1.2 lens. We're going to be experimenting with that tonight. It does capture less of the sky than what we're trying to accomplish with our wide angle lenses. That brings me to the next piece of equipment. A wide angle lens. We're shooting 16 and 17 millimeters tonight. Those are the widest ones we had. Camera with 3200 ISO, wide lens that's fast, f2.8 or faster if possible. Also a good solid tripod. We're going to put links in the description below to the equipment we use, including our very sturdy tripods. Whatever camera you have to have a lot of battery life. If that means having a grip with an extra battery in it or bringing extra batteries along. Also, the largest memory card you have. We have 128 gigabyte cards in our cameras. That will more than cover what we're shooting this evening. In some cases, for what Jackie's doing, shooting star trails, she may capture 600 images. We're not going to do that this evening, but that takes a lot of battery life and it takes a lot of memory. Once you've captured all of your images, you also need a way to process them. And there's really two ways. Adobe Photoshop gives a lot of latitude with processing, but if you're not adept at Photoshop, that's going to be too deep of a dive. There is a great program called StarStax. We're going to put a link in the description below. That is a free program, not a free trial version of the program. It is the full functioning program, and it is designed just for the purpose of bringing in a stack of images and creating these beautiful star trail images. Another piece of equipment that we're not getting that deep tonight is what's called a star tracker, and there is a whole industry of tracking devices that will lock on to a particular part of the sky, and it will make sure that the camera stays perfectly locked to that position even as the Earth rotates. The next thing to consider is your location. A dark sky is preferable. The darker, the better. I'm going to provide a link in the description below to a light pollution map that you can overlay to your current location, and you can determine if you want to photograph from where you are, or if maybe just going a few miles puts you in a better situation. Next, we're going to talk about focus. There are two ways to focus on the night sky. I'm going to show you one way using live view in the back of your camera. Jackie is going to show you the other way, which is achieving the hyperfocal distance. If you think you're going to look in the eyepiece of the camera and focus on the night sky, I've never been able to do it. I don't know who's able to do it. It would require some incredibly acute vision to do that. The technique is to find a bright object in the sky. With the lens set on manual focus, just toggle back and forth the focus until that object is as small as possible on the live view screen. I have set it to live view, and you can see it's completely dark. I think the ISO is set at 400. Yeah, it is 400. So in order for me to focus on anything in the night sky, I'm going to have to go as high as I possibly can go, which is 25,600 ISO in this camera. Oh, when I do that, I've got the camera pointed to Venus, and you can see it's kind of a big dot. In fact, I can make it a really big dot by doing that. Almost looks like the moon. But now what I want to do, I've put the lens on manual focus, and I'm going to turn the focus ring to make this as small a dot as possible. I'm just gradually rotating it counterclockwise. That's about it. If I go a little past that, right there, that's really hard to see. I'll toggle back and forth. That's infinity. That's just off infinity. So I'm going to try to make it as small as I can, which I think is right there. That's using live view to attain focus at night. Once you've achieved that, you're done. You're already in manual focus. Leave it there, and you're not going to touch anything. That will provide the perfect focus for the entire star field. So that's the live view technique.
And the reason why we are now filming in the dark here is because I forgot to mention hyperfocal distance, which is the greatest depth of field you can possibly have. In order to do that, I set my lens on autofocus and picked a spot on the mountain and focused on that. I switched it back to manual focus, and I won't be moving it for the rest of the night.
I'm going to be capturing points of light with my camera tonight, and I'm going to be using live view to focus. So the first thing to do is to decide what section of the sky you're going to photograph, or if there's a foreground image that you'd like to have part of the frame. In this case, we've come out to the mountains, so I'm going to use some mountains in the foreground, and I've got a great program called PhotoPills. I'm going to talk about that later, which shows where certain stars are in the night sky and where the Milky Way is, and you can really position yourself relative to those stars or relative to the Milky Way and kind of put things between you and that object. Once you choose a section of the sky and you have your image framed, the next thing you have to decide is what exposure or shutter speed are you going to use. Now, there is a rule in astrophotography. This particular rule is kind of a rule of thumb called the 500 rule. Sometimes it's called the 600 rule. Both get you pretty close. Depending on the focal length of your lens, mine is a 16 millimeter. Take the number 500 and divide your focal length into 500. 500 divided by 16 happens to be 31 and a quarter, 31.25. That represents the longest exposure time you can have with this lens and still have the stars render as points of light and not ovals. If I just pointed my camera at the sky and photographed it for a minute, all of my points of light would be egg-shaped and would appear blurry. They would be blurry. I'm not going to go all the way out to that exposure limit. I'm going to try to take the shortest exposure time I can and still get the stars visible. So somewhere in there, I'm kind of zooming in on the perfect exposure, but using that 500 rule, that's where to start. I know I can't go longer than that. So, I think I'm going to start tonight at maybe around 22 seconds. So once I do that, once I experiment and I've used the 500 rule, I've got my image framed, I can take a photo, and using the live view, I can just kind of eyeball it. I can see, yes, the framing looks good, and the stars appear to be points of light. Maybe I'll increase my exposure time a little bit, just risking adding more noise to the image, or maybe I'll reduce it to see if that I'm still able to see the stars and not have a long exposure time. I might even adjust my ISO some. So, starting from that rule of thumb, I can experiment.
Ansel Adams says there are no rules for good photographs, just good photographs. Having said that, there are a couple of rules we want you to start with. Rules for star trails are starting at ISO 3200, having your fastest lens and your widest lens, and also starting at 30-second exposures. I've got a remote shutter release here that I'm going to be using. I feel like I've got the easier job tonight on a whole by setting up for these light trails, because I know what to really start my camera at. I'm going to push the shutter release to automatic when I'm ready, and it is going to take shots 30 seconds apart for as long as I let it. About 60 minutes probably is what we'll go today, so we have about 120 images, and then those will all be stacked, and we'll talk about that later. I keep watching a mosquito as it's dancing around Craig's head, if you see my eyes going. My favorite girl, and a camera. No capyrinas tonight. No, we wouldn't make it out of the desert. That's probably true. I wanted to have something in the foreground of my image and have that swirling star trail either leading to it or off to one side. We'd love to have you guys go take these tips, run out to your backyard and show us what you get. Post your images in the comments below.
If you want to get much, much deeper into astrophotography, check out backyardastro.com or click the link in the description below. Also, Come back next week when I'll be showing you how I process these night sky images in both Photoshop and StarStax. Good luck with your astrophotography attempt. The result is absolutely great when you nail it. Please share, like, and subscribe for more photography tips and tricks, and join Jackie and I as we travel around and photograph the U.S. Take care.